بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم لا حول ولا قوة الا بالله العلی العظیم الحمد لله رب العالمین و صلی الله علی سیدنا و نبینا ابی القاسم المصطفى محمد و آله الطیبین الطاهرین لا سیما بقیة الله فی الارضین عجل الله تعالی فرجه الشریف. اللهم اخرجنی من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Sharh al-Manzumah by Ayatummah Mutahhari rahmatullah alayh. In the last session, we introduced the idea of philosophers about mental existence, وجود ذهنی, and we mentioned some arguments for it. All these arguments were to help us appreciate that there is something inside us. Our knowledge is not just a connection, a relation, a kind of what they call إضافة or nisbah with the ma'lum, with what is known. There is something other than what is known inside our mind. And for example, we refer to al-qadaya al-saliba, we refer to al-mafahim al-kulliya and sarf al-shay, negational propositions, universal concepts, and absolute concepts. After that, Hadi Sabzewari mentions some objections which are raised against idea of mental existence, against وجود ذهنی. He starts with this couplet. He says that والذات في انحا الوجودات حفظ جمع المقابلین منه قد لحظ. Maybe if someone can share this on the screen, would help with focus. It's page 53 of Sharh al-Manzumah. If you have the PDF, you can bring to page 53 of Sharh al-Manzumah. I don't know who has access to put a share screen. Ahsanto. This helps inshallah with your focus. والذات في انحاء الوجودات حفظ. You see, it's in purple, the first couplet. والذات في انحاء الوجودات حفظ جمع المقابلين منه قد لحظ. When we have وجود الذهني, what we suppose is that the same thing comes to our mind, not something else. So there must be the same mahiyya, the same essence. If there is fire outside and fire inside, this must also be fire. So mahiyya must be the same. Or if it's apple, and in my mind is also apple. So essence in all different types of existence is preserved. Hufidha is mahfuz, is preserved. So the same essence. Okay. Then you may say, what then is the problem? The problem which has been raised by some is that then how can something have the same essence while there is a shift from outside to the mind, When something is outside, can be Ghurar, can be a substance, like apple, like a human being, is Ghurar. But when it comes to mind and becomes my knowledge, it has to be araz, because it is قائم بنفسي. It depends on my soul. Its subject, its موضوع, its معروض is my nafs, because knowledge is a type of araz. Inshallah, we will mention this also again in the second objection, that knowledge is كيف نفساني, a type of كيف نفساني, type of كيف is araz, is my knowledge. My knowledge cannot exist without me. It's a kind of araz dependent on me. That the apple outside is a substance can exist without me. إذا وجد وجد لا في موضوع. This is the definition of جوهر. جوهر ماهية إذا وجدت وجدت لا في موضوع. أما عرض is ماهية إذا وجدت وجدت في موضوع. So how can something preserve its essence, its mahiyya, and then be in my mind, while if it was Ghurar here, it has to be araz. So this is the first objection. وَالذَّاتُ فِي انحا الوجودات. That if you want to do تخفيف الحمزة, you may say وَالذَّاتُ فِي انحا الوجودات, but its reality is انحا. حفظ is محفوظ, it's preserved. جمع المقابلين منه قد لحظ, but it has been seen. لحظ means ملحوظ, means it has been seen, it has been considered. ملاحظة means to observe. لحظة is like, you know, like eye blink. So جمع المقابلين منه قد لحظ, it has been seen as coming together of two conflicting things, two different things, because Ghurar and araz are totally different. فجوهر مع عرض كيف اجتمع. How can substance and accident be together? The same thing. Two different things, not a problem. We have a substance and many araz, but the same thing, to be substance and to be araz. When it is outside is substance, when it's inside is araz. فجوهر مع عرض كيف اجتمع. Or أم كيف تحت الكيف كل قد وقع. Or make it more particular, more specific. In the first one we say Ghurar and araz, but may someone say, okay, what if what is outside is also araz? For example, the color of this apple outside is araz, and when it comes to my mind is also araz. So someone say, okay, here we don't have problem. But the problem is that even here we have problem. Why? Because color of apple is كيف, but it's كيف محسوس. It's something that can be seen, perceived, or when you touch it, that quality of softness, for example, or hardness, etc. It's كيف محسوس, because كيف محسوس is مبصر, مذوق, مسموم, ملموس, etc. مشموم. But علم is كيف نفساني, is a psychic quality. So even if it is كيف, we have problem. Or if it is كم, it's 10, for example, millimeters, 10 inches, 10 centimeters, whatever. There is a door which is 2 meters. the substance of door is Jawhar, is a problem. If Jawhar comes to mind and becomes aras. But the measure of it, it's 2 meters, for example, the length of it, although it is aras, but it is kam. It's kam muttasil. If it comes to my mind, it would be aras, but it's kayf nafsani. So the problem is not solved. If the first objection is pursued, the problem is only with Jawhar. Jawhar coming to the mind and becoming aras. But if it is aras, it's not a problem. But in the second problem, it goes further. And we have problem with anything other than kayf nafsani. If it is kayf mahsus, is problem. It's kam is problem. It's mata is problem. It's Jawhar is problem. So these are 2 well-known objections with respect to وجود ذهنی. Ayatummah Mutahhari rahmatullah alayh says, in order to understand the main issue here and why different answers have been given, why people have taken different positions, we can say that the idea of mental existence or wujud ذهنی is a matter of believing in 5 things. And people sometimes try to deny one of these 5 things to solve the problem, because they thought we cannot maintain all these 5 and answer to these questions. But inshallah we will see that how Mulla Sadra and following him Hakim Sabzewari try to maintain all these 5 and answer to these objections. So the idea of wujud ذهنی is a matter of believing in these 5 points. Number 1, whenever we understand something, we know something, we perceive, or other ways of understanding, a surah, an image of that thing, takes form in our mind. We are talking about ilm husuli. Ilm husuli, hudur surat al-ma'lum lada al-alim. So we have a surah, a mental image of that thing. This is the first point that we accept. And the reason for this is, we said, we have knowledge of the things that don't exist outside. Although it is badihi, you can understand that you have something in your mind, but if you want to also argue more, you can say, qazayay thalibe, ma'dumat, kulliyat, sarf al-shay. You can even mention as 4, because qazayay thalibe are something and ma'dumat are another thing. Then we can say kulli and also sarf al-shay. In any case, there are things that we know and they don't exist outside. So there must be something inside. Number 1. Number 2. This is important too. Ilm and ma'lum in our mind are the same. You have apple outside. So it's apple بالوجود الخارجي. You have apple inside your mind بالوجود الذهني. Now, what is known to you directly and primarily is the image of apple. What is known secondarily is apple outside. Therefore, philosophers say, you remember this, and if not, please remember this, it's very important. They say, al-ma'lumu bil-dhat is the surah, the image here. Al-ma'lumu bil-dhat, what is known primarily. Al-ma'lumu bil-arad, what is known secondarily, or as by way of help of the image, is apple outside. So what is known to me first is surah of apple. Now, surah of apple is ma'lum and ilm. My knowledge is presence of this surah for me. The fact that this is for me, it's my ilm. So ilm and ma'lum are the same in the discussion about اتحاد عقل و عاقل و معقول. They mention this, but it's not very complicated. What is your ilm? Your ilm is this surah of apple. So this is ilm and ma'lum are the same. The reason we mention this is because one way of answering to this problem, to these objections, is that they have, some people denied that. They said ma'lum is different from ilm, but we say no, it's the same thing. Number 3, when we know something, its zat, its mahiyya, if it has mahiyya like mumkinat, should come to my mind. Wujud ذهنی, according to Hukama, according to philosophers, is that the same thing comes to my mind. If it was something else, then I don't have ilm. If instead of apple something else comes to my mind, then I don't have knowledge of apple. If I see Zaid, but instead of Zaid something else comes, or someone else comes to my mind, then I have no knowledge of Zaid. So the same Zat, the same mahiyya, the same thing has to come. Number 4, ilm, our knowledge, is a type of kayf, is from the category of quality, al-kayf. Following Aristotle, philosophers, or many philosophers, they believe that everything is a matter of Ghurar, or 9 categories for a'raz. Everything mumkin. Al-mahiyatu imma Ghuharun or kamun or kayfun or mata, ayn and yaf'al and yanfa'il, jada, wada, one of these 9. Of course, there is a technical discussion here. They don't say 2 categories. They don't say Ghurar or an araz. Ghurar has 5 types, araz has 9 types. No. Therefore, araz for them is not jinsul ajnas. For them, jinsul ajnas are 10. Ghurar, kam itself, or kayf itself, not araz and then araz is divided. I think it was after we studied Bidayatul Hikmah that I asked some of you brothers and sisters who were there that to think about this, why they don't say araz is jinsul ajnas. So they say that every mahiyya is either Ghurar or one of these 10, and one of these 9 altogether becomes 10. Al-maqulatul ash, 10 categories. And these 10 categories are jinsul ajnas. They are top categories. They don't have anything in common. Ghurar is not formed of 2 other things. Ghurar is jinsul ajnas. It doesn't have jins and fasl. Kam, kayf, etc. So these 10 are totally different. And they say ilm is from kayf. Kayf and nafsani. One type of kayf is kayf and nafsani. So, point 4, ilm is from kayf, and then we can add point 5 that these maqulat, these categories are totally separate from each other, nothing in common between them. So if we keep these 5 in our mind, then we can see how different thinkers, different philosophers and theologians have tried to answer to these 2 objections by compromising about some of these 5, or questioning, denying, replacing these 5 with other things. But we believe in all these 5. So something takes place in my mind. Ma'lum and ilm are the same. Ilm is kayf nafsani, so ma'lum has to be kayf nafsani. And this is from maqul kayf nafsani, which is separate from other maqulat. These maqulat have nothing in common between them. So how can then something be jawhar outside and be existing with wujud al-Zihni, which is kayf nafsani in my mind, or be araz or jawhar, whatever? The first objection is only for jawahir, the second is for even araz, if they are different from kayf nafsani. Okay. Hakim Sabzewari says, فهذا الإشكال جعل العقول حيارى والأفهام سرعى فاختار كل مهربا. He says this objection, especially the second one, is so difficult that has perplexed uqul, reasons, and has made understanding and intelligences of people sar'a. Sari' means someone who has fallen down. Sometimes it is used for someone who has been killed. So aql and fahm, reason and understanding of people, have been badly affected by this problem, objection. فَاخْتَارَ كُلٌّ مَهْرَبًا. Mahrab from harab means firar. Mahrab means mafar. So everyone has tried to find a way out, to run away from this objection. So now let's see what are the responses. فَأَنْكَرَ الذِّهْنِيَّ قَوْمٌ مُطْلقا. فَأَنْكَرَ الذِّهْنِيَّ قَوْمٌ مُطْلقا. Some people have denied wujud al-Zihni altogether. They said we don't have anything as wujud al-Zihni. This is the idea of Fakhruddin al-Razi, Imam al-Mushakkikin. Fakhruddin al-Razi, who is a theologian, who has also Tafsir al-Kabir of Quran. He has denied the idea of wujud al-Zihni. You must also know that Mutakallimin also dealt with these issues, because these are issues that Mutakallimin and philosophers both dealt with. So Fakhr Razi has dealt with it, and Fakhr Razi is someone that also had commentary on al-Isharat wa tanbihat. So whether it's about tabi'iyat or about ilahiyat, he has commentary. So he was very much following up what philosophers were discussing and was commenting. So he says we don't have anything as wujud al-Zihni. Then you say, then what is knowledge? You say it's just a kind of nisbah, a kind of relation. For example, Ayatummah Mutahhari is a good example here. He says, if we have a tree, this tree is growing, it's going to bear fruits, and then there is another tree next to it. It's mujawir, it's like neighbor, it's next to this tree. There is a relation between these two trees that doesn't exist between all the trees. Only this tree has this relation. So this tree is observing the other tree growing. But is this anything other than being neighbor? No. It's not that images or any kind of knowledge of this tree is in the other tree. So he says our knowledge of something outside is like a tree being next to another tree, or a tree being next to an object. There is nothing happening in us. And as you see, this is a very weak position. A tree doesn't have understanding of the other tree. But we have understanding. And also, a tree doesn't remember anything from the past. Even if we compromise and say this tree has now a relation, but this relation is always with the other tree at the moment. But we can have a knowledge of something in the past and present. We can have both of them at the same time. Where do we store these things? We have to have something inside, in our mind. So this is one answer to objection which we don't accept. As you see, the way that this answer tries to fix the problem is by denying that something comes to our mind. The next answer, بعض قیاما من حصول فرقا, means فرقه. So some of the also thinkers have tried to solve the problem by distinguishing between two things, قیام بالنفس and حصول للنفس. قیام بالشيء, here in this case nafs, is to be عرض. عرض قائم بالموضوع, قائم بالجوهر. And if we say it is عرض, then it's a problem, because we said it can be jawhar outside. So here the way to solve this, according to Fadil Qushji. Fadil Qushji is a Sunni theologian from Qushji, is near the city of Urumiyeh in northwestern Iran. He was very interested in Tajrid al-I'tiqad by Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi, and he has one of the good commentaries of Tajrid, very well known. If you remember when we started Kashf al-Murad, we said that Tajrid al-I'tiqad has been received by Sunni and Shia scholars with great respect, and there are many commentaries by Sunni and Shia scholars on Tajrid al-I'tiqad. So Fazil Qushji, who is one of the well-known commentators of Kashf al-Murad, he says that when we have knowledge of something, that image of that thing, for example, if apple, that image of apple is not araz, it is just hal. So I am not mawdu, I am mahal, means it's the surah comes to me, but it's not aras for me. Ayatummah Mutahhari again has a beautiful example to clarify what's the difference and to see what's the problem then. To defend and to try to articulate his point in the best possible way, we can say that the example of our mind and the mental existence of apple is like, suppose that you have a container, a crystal bowl, for example, and then you put something like an apple in this crystal bowl. Then this apple is inside this container, but also there is a reflection from apple coming out of this crystal. So the crystal can become like a mirror and you can see the apple. So وجود ذهنی of apple is like the apple in this bowl. So وجود ذهنی is here inside my mind, but my ilm, which is araz, is reflection of what is inside my mind on my mind, like an image in mirror. But this is also very weak because we don't have two things. Our mental image or surat al-Dhihniya and our knowledge are the same. And it just adds to the problem. If you want to say we have another reflection, okay, how that reflection then it's identical with this and then with the one outside. So this is the second way which compromises about ilm being aras and having ma'lum and ilm the same. Another opinion is وَقِيلَ بِالْأَشْبَاحِ الْأَشْيَا انطبعت. If you want to read it slowly and separate it, means وَقِيلَ بِالْأَشْبَاحِ الْأَشْيَا انطبعت. But if you do vast, وَقِيلَ بِالْأَشْبَاحِ الْأَشْيَا انطبعت, بالاشباح الاشیا انطبعت. The third opinion is what we call نظریة الشبه. In بداية الحكمة, if you remember, we had نظریة الاشباح والشبه. Shabah means like a ghost. When you see something from distance, for example, you don't know whether it's a human being or a bear. Maybe bear is standing on the feet, on its legs. It can be one of the two, although it's only one, but the amount of knowledge that I have is not enough to clarify and decide which one. There's ambiguity. Or like a ghost of, or something, unclear image. Is it my friend or is someone else that looks like my friend? From distance, it's a vague picture. So, some people have said that what we have in our mind when we know something is not exactly that thing. Something similar but vague or ambiguous or unclear, something clouded takes form in our mind. You don't need to look for identical relation to say that the same thing, the same essence, the same reality comes to mind. We said fire inside is also fire. Apple inside is also apple. Zaid inside is also Zaid. But they say no. What is in mind is just somehow similar, but not very much, clear and with details, all those things. So in this way, what they want to say is outside is possible to be Ghurar or any araz, and inside is Kayf. Like on a piece of paper you can draw something. If on a piece of paper you draw apple, this is shabah of apple, is a kind of image of apple, but it's on the paper. It's not a substance separate from the paper. Ayatummah Mutahhari says this theory or this idea of shabah is most common idea among people who don't accept wujud ذهنی. This is more what maybe some empiricists, some philosophers who are not very rationalists and in favor of classic account of knowledge, they may say, especially those materialists that they want to reduce everything to the brain and deny that human mind is different from brain. They may try to say our knowledge are those chemical, for example, things that happen in cells of the brain, for example. So they may say there is something inside us happening, but it's not the same thing coming to us. This idea is not acceptable. Ayatollah Mutahhari has very good discussion about this in اصول فلسفه و روش رئالیسم. علامه طباطبایی also refers to this idea in بدایه النهایه. The simple answer is this: this is rejection of possibility of knowledge. We don't deny that certain things happen, certain interactions and you can say incidents take place in our cells, starting from the organs which are responsible for perception, like eye, ear, tongue, skins, up to the brain, and maybe we can trace these changes. That's not a problem. But our knowledge of something is not these things. These are only preparatory things. In the end of the day, I should have exact knowledge about these things outside. Otherwise, you have to deny the possibility. We are so much capable of knowing the external world that we can make all the necessary calculations in science and technology. When a plane is taking off with tens of tons of iron and with passengers and luggages, and then comes back, if we didn't have very accurate way of understanding what is happening outside, what is there outside, how could we make these things? So we have to allow for our mind to develop accurate knowledge of the things as they are. So this idea of shabah is not acceptable. Then the next thing is that وَقِيلَ بِالْأَنفُسِ وَهِيَ انقلبت. So the first was one answer, the second is another answer. وَقِيلَ بِالاشباح الاشیا انطبعت وَقِيلَ بِالانفس وَهِيَ انقلبت. So this other theory is to say that, okay, the same thing comes to us, but when it comes to us, there will be transformation. انقلاب في الماهیه means transformation. So outside, maybe it was not kayf, or was kayf but not kayf nafsani. It comes to mind and just becomes kayf nafsani. This is attributed to Sayyid Sadr Shirazi. This is different from Sayyid Sadr, from Mullah Sadr, Sadruddin Shirazi. This is Sayyid Sadr, ma'ruf bi Sayyid Sanad. He had this idea that it would not be at the end the same mahiyya. Yes, the same thing comes, but then go through transformation. This is a very weak theory, because انقلاب في الماهیه is not possible. Transformation in mahiyya is not possible. If it is transformed, it's not anymore the same thing. Then we cannot have a kind of identical image or corresponding image to the external world. This is not solving any problem. Another idea is وقيل بالتشبيه والمسامحة تسمیة بالكیف عنهم مفصحة. Some people have said that it is said that actually it was said by Jalaluddin Dawani. Jalaluddin Dawani is a famous thinker, and he was in 9th century, died in the beginning of the 10th century of Islam. He had this idea, Muhaqqiq Dawani or Jalaluddin Dawani. He says, Hukama, when they say it is kayf, ilm is kayf, it's a kind of rough and a kind of you can say decided, or not well measured expression. It's a kind of compromise to say that it is kayf. They didn't mean exactly this is kayf. It's like kayf. قيل بالتشبيه والمسامحة تسمیة بالكيف عنهم مفصحة. It has been said to name this kayf is, which is heard from them, it is reported from them, it is based on likening and compromising. When we say someone is like lion, we don't mean that he is really an animal like lion. Similar. So according to this answer, this reply, this attempt actually to solve the problem, they want to say that the knowledge that we have is like kayf nafsani, and it's not always kayf nafsani. If it is knowledge about kam, it is kam. If it is knowledge of kayf, it's kayf. If knowledge of mata, it's mata. So we have a kind of compromise or lack of precision and accuracy by philosophers when they say it is kayf. But the reality is that philosophers really meant this, that this knowledge is kayf nafsani. They didn't say this with compromise. They really meant ilm is kayf nafsani. You cannot solve the problem in this way. Then we go to the idea of Mulla Sadra, which solves the problem. None of these solve the problem. بحمل ذات صورة مقولة وحدتها مع عاقل مقولة. The key is this, to distinguish between two types of حمل, two types of predication. حمل اولی و حمل شایع، حمل اولی ذاتی اور حمل شایع صناعی. In order to explain this, let us start with a point from logic. In logic, when they, introduce to us two contradictory concepts, which are متناقض, they say there must be 8 similarities. در تناقض 8 وحدت شرط دان. For example, if you want to say two sentences are contradictory, for example, Zaid is father. Another says Zaid is not father. In order to have contradiction between these two sentences, Zaid must be the same Zaid, وحدت موضوع. Father must mean the same thing, وحدت محمول. شرط، مکان، زمان، نسبت. For example, father of whom? Yes, Zaid, the same time, with the same meaning of father, can be father of someone and not father of another person. So all these things have to be considered. Mulla Sadra, as you remember, adds another requirement for tanaquz. Another wahda has to be preserved, and that is wahdat in the type of haml. It's possible to say two seemingly contradictory things, but in reality they are not contradictory. For example, we say al-juz'i yamtani'u sidquhu ala kathirin. Juz'i, what is juz'i? Mafhum juz'i, a particular, is something that is impossible to be used and as predicate or to be applied to more than one. Juz'i cannot be applied to more than one. But then someone says, but this by itself is kulli, because Zayd is juz'i, Amr is juz'i, Bakr is juz'i, city of Mecca, these names of the cities, these are all juz'i. So juz'i has become kulli. Mafhum juz'i has become kulli. Or you say al-juz'iyyu juz'iyyun and al-juz'iyyu laysa bi-juz'i. The answer is that, but these are two different types of haml. If you want to say something contradictory, you have to preserve the type of haml. When we say al-juz'i yamtani'u sidquhu ala kathirin, we mean mafhum al-juz'i or al-juz'i bil-haml al-awwali. Al-juz'i bil-haml al-awwali is kulli. If you are talking about individuals themselves, not mafhum in juz'i, then it's different. So individuals cannot be applied to more than one. Like Zayd, Amr, London, Mecca, Mashhad, Najaf. These names, proper nouns, cannot be applied to more than one case. But this is al-juz'i bil-haml al-shay'i, means masadiq al-juz'i. But al-juz'i as a general title, general concept, it's kulli. So al-juz'i bil-haml al-awwali kulliyun. ولا يمتنع صدقه على كثير. But al-juz'i bil-haml al-shay'i laysa bi-kulli. ويمتنع صدقه على كثير. So this was a reminder of what we studied in logic and also in Bidayah. Here also we apply the same thing. And this is the core of بحث وجود ذهنی. The core of this discussion is this, that fire in my mind is fire بالحمل الأولي. Fire outside is fire بالحمل الشایع. That is an instance of fire with وجود خارجی of fire, and it heats and burns. Fire here is بالحمل الأولي, is مفهوم of fire, is image of fire. Fire outside, or apple outside, or flower outside, they belong to different maqulat, different categories. But these things inside, when they are here, بالحمل الأولي, they are mafahim, and they are suwar of my mind. So problem is solved. So it's the same thing, but بالحمل الأولي. It cannot be another thing, because then we don't have knowledge. It's surah, and this surah is identical, but the surah itself بالحمل الشایع. So if you look at the surah itself, it's كيف نفساني. If you look at the surah as a mirror, as a image that reflects something outside, so بالحمل الأولي is identical to maqulat of those things. So this is the whole idea of Mulla Sadra and then Hakim Sabzewari, and similar to this, we have it by al-Allama Tabatabai in Bidayah and Nihaya, and here also Ayatummah Mutahhari. So Alhamdulillah, the discussion about wujud al-ذهني ends. Inshallah, in the next session we will talk about اتحاد العاقل والمعقول more, and then inshallah we go to the discussion about معقولات الثانية. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So today, because the discussion was long, so we wouldn't have a second part. If you have any question, any comments, please let me know. Otherwise, we are finished for today. You're welcome. May Allah bless you, inshallah. No question? Okay. التماس دعا. خدا حافظ.